What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you the best method to farm components in this game that I have found. This method gets you upwards of 4,400 kills per hour, which can make you a ton of money in rare components and uncommon components, or it can get you the rare components you need to get best in slot perks without having to go out and actually disassemble a bunch of expensive items. So to start off with the preset with this method, you can see the inventory I'm using is pretty much just potion reservoirs, some aggression potions, and then a bunch of smoke devil pouches with the scrolls. These are the most important things to have in here, but there are a few other items that are very important to have. It's kind of hard to tell maybe because the colors are very similar, but you can see the bottom right potion is actually a super restore. And the reason you want to bring a super restore is to regenerate your summoning points. So when you run out of those, you can resummon your smoke devils without having to leave the area and get the points at like the Wars or Treat Crystal or something like that. So definitely be bringing a super restore flask to regenerate your summoning points. We are also using some Lantidime incense sticks to increase the duration of the aggression potions, which is very helpful. We do have an Excalibur. You do need to use this about once every hour, or I mean, probably more like once every like 2 to 3 hours, honestly. But you do need something to regenerate a little bit of HP occasionally, so that will definitely help you out. And then we also have a spring cleaner. The spring cleaner, I'll show a screenshot of it here, but the spring cleaner setup is very specific. You want to have the spring cleaner disassembling all of the bronze salvage, but you don't want it to be like disassembling or wasting springs on a bunch of the random other items that get dropped. So you can see the settings that I was using here. Make sure you have these settings. I think the spring cleaner has to be like the 3000 or higher. So definitely make sure you're getting that. As for the gear you can downgrade quite a bit from what you see here. Like, you obviously don't need to have this exact gear setup, but this is probably the most efficient setup that I was using, and if you do downgrade, you probably will get slightly less kills per hour. Basically, what we're doing here is you can see we have the knock staff, and then in the leg slot, that is a Virtus leg I just had laying around, and then the rest of the items are non-augmented. You can see it's just the boots and gloves. They don't degrade, so they're free to use. And then it's a lucky helmet and garb. So those aren't augmented. We only have augmenters on the weapon and the leg slot. And the reason we do that is because, as you can see in the other section, there are the perks that I'm using. We want to be getting Corroming 4 as well as Ruthless 3 Eruptive 4. There are other perks, I'll get into that in a second, but you do want to have those weapon perks. And you also want to be having the Scavenging and Undead Slayer perk as well. So the best way to do that is just have 2 pieces of augmented gear. I will note though, if you're an Iron Man, you can actually just have 1 piece of augmented gear, like just the augmented like Limitless Staff of Air or something like that, and then save on some divine charges. But even for Iron Man, I don't even think that's worth it. You're better off just getting higher kills per hour, in my opinion. So yeah, that is going to be the weapons and gear that I'm using. You can see the book, the ring, you know, all that stuff. We're not activating the book or anything like that. It's just there for the damage bonus. And then you can see in the aura slot, we are using the Equilibrium aura. This aura is incredibly good for this method. Basically, what this aura does for us is it gets our minimum hit up to 2100 damage, which means we will one-shot the skeletons every single time with the greater, or just normal chain ability with Corroming. So every time you cast chain, every target it hits will get killed every single time. Guaranteed, pretty much. I mean, maybe the minimum hit is like 2070 damage instead of 2100, but you'll pretty much always one-shot these things because of the Equilibrium aura. And obviously, maximum damage doesn't matter, so we don't really care about critical strikes. So yeah, the Equilibrium aura is really good for that. On top of that, you can extend the Equilibrium aura to a duration of 4 hours. So you can sit here for a very long time farming components for pretty cheap on 1 aura. And then for the familiar, you can see we have the Smoke Devil set to a 1-second auto fire rate. The Smoke Devil is really good for this. If you don't know what this familiar does, it spams out a little AoE like dust cloud thing that hits every single target it can hit for about 400 to 500 damage, and it will also tag the monsters. So if the aggression potion isn't fast enough to like make the monsters aggressive, the Smoke Devil will usually pick up the pace and increase your kills per hour pretty significantly, as well as doing a decent bit of area effect damage. And when you pair that with the Magma Tempest ability, you can see, you really start increasing your kills per hour pretty high. And I found with all of these things, you get about 42 to 4,400 kills per hour. So you can definitely be making a ton of components or profit from those components if you're going to be making items. So yeah, very, very strong method. And for the perks, I'm just going to make a little note here. You can see I'm using the Corroming 4 Precise 2 and then Eruptive 4 Ruthless 3 perk. Mathematically, this is the best combination of perks you can use because it gets you to 11.15% damage. However, I'm not entirely sure if that's perfectly accurate in this scenario because a perk like Precise increases your minimum hit, and that's really what we're going after. So if you don't want to be making these custom perks, you could just use something like Corroming 4 Eruptive 2 and then Precise 6 Ruthless 1. And I found that is pretty similar in terms of the kills per hour. But I do think what you see here is technically the best, which I guess is the best type of correct for some people. But yeah, and then after that, you pretty much, obviously, like I said, want Undead Slayer and then the Scavenging 4 perk. And yeah, with these perks and with this setup, like I said, 4,400 kills per hour. If you check the wiki, that will get you about 700 uncommon materials per hour and about 7 rare materials per hour. And that is worth about 46 million GP per hour. So it's definitely a very, very good method for GP as well as getting rare components if you don't want to spend the money on the perks. And for Ironmen, this is a fantastic method to be getting a lot of components because I found on Ironman mode, you need to be getting a wide variety of rare components to be making a bunch of different perks and stuff, and like items, like equipment separators. And this is just a great way to plunk your character down while you're doing something else and getting just a stupid amount of components. So definitely be doing this on an Ironman, and it can be kind of useful for mains as well. So in order to start this method up, the best way that you're going to do this is just teleport here to Lumbridge. As you can see, you need to complete the Blood Pact quest in order to access this area, but you just come here into the Lumbridge Catacombs and you can see there's a staircase right next to the doorway that you go down twice to get into the bottom floor of the catacomb. And then you just run along this area until you eventually get to the skeletons here. And as you can see, once we get to the skeletons, you will stand in this tile that is just west of the little like column pillar thingy that you see. So you can see right here, I am standing just west of this like pillar and in the center of the broken one and the non-broken one. And this is where you want to stand in order to, you know, increase your kills per hour as much as possible. Basically, if you're standing in line with the pillars, the monsters can get stuck, but if you see me, or if you're standing where you see me right now, the monsters will never get stuck behind these pillars, and it will increase your kills per hour pretty significantly. So make sure you're just not standing in line with those pillars. And then all you do here is turn on your equilibrium aura, and then you can extend it to up to 4 hours for only 40 Viswax, which is probably going to be worth it for a lot of people if they're going to be sitting here while they're doing like something else like working or whatever. And then yeah, you just activate your aggression potion and then summon your Smoke Devil familiar, and make sure its auto fire rate is set to 1. And it's a very, very straightforward method to be farming a ton of components, as you can see. So just a few things to note here. You can see we are using the Salve Amulet. The Salve Amulet will make this very consistent. The Salve Amulet is pretty much needed to get a minimum hit of 2100 to be guaranteeing your kills on these guys. But yeah, it's definitely a very, very good method. And like I said, you should be able to get about 46 million GP per hour or up to 7 rare components per hour on average. So definitely be doing this method to be farming out all of your components. So some other important things to note about this method is your HP will start to dip occasionally. So that's why I bring the Excalibur. You honestly probably only need to use this about once every 2 hours or something like that. So you really don't need to upkeep your HP at all, really. But yeah, definitely make sure you're keeping an eye on that, I guess. And then also, We are using the Salve and Undead Slayer amulet and perk, like I said, but you could use something like a Demon Horn and a damage boosting prayer, and if you like don't have a Salve, I guess, for some reason, but it's probably not really worth noting that too much. And then yeah, with this method, you get anywhere from 42 to 4,400 kills per hour, make up to 46 million GP per hour, and get up to 7 rare components per hour. So it's definitely a very good method to be getting your components, and I would highly suggest doing this if you don't have a ton of money and you want to be getting best in slot perks. Just plunk your character down here and go do something else for a while, and you will eventually come back and have like a bunch of Nox components and Illusion components and stuff like that. So it's definitely worth doing this, I think, for pretty much most players. And the uncommon components are very, very nice, and you can make a ton of useful or expensive items to sell to people to make some money doing this as well. So one other tip I can give you is you can actually do this at the corpse spiders as well. These only have 600 HP, so if you don't have something like a Nox staff or you really want to be using cheaper gear, you can see here that you can come to the corpse spiders and get pretty decent kills per hour. It is slightly slower, as you can see, but if you do have lower gear, this does work pretty well as well. But the reason this isn't as good as the skeleton method is because it's harder to track your kills, to be honest with you. Like the skeleton, you can track the bones. And the second thing is you can see how spread out these monsters are. It does make it a little bit more annoying. They also attack you with range here. And because they attack you with range, they don't move directly next to you. So things like Corruption Blast won't be as effective. You can see the familiars only attacking half of the room at any given time. And it's overall just a bit slower. You can get up to 4,000 kills per hour using this method, but it's pretty unlikely from what I've found that you actually get that. And I think you're just much better off doing the skeleton method, even if you aren't able to get the minimum hit to 2,100. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this video helps you guys get some of your rare components and get some best in slot perks. Best in slot perks are incredibly useful and powerful for your account, and they are absolutely worth getting. So if you don't have the money to be spending to be getting best in slot perks on all of your gear, definitely be using this method to get there, because I think on every single piece of gear, you should be trying to get at least pretty close to best in slot perks. So if you made it this far in the video, definitely drop a like on it if it helped you out. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.